Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my collaboration and leadership reflection video for Nursing 4010, Leading People, Processes, and Organizations in Interprofessional Practice. My name is Maria Argudo, and during this video, I plan to reflect on an interdisciplinary collaboration experience, noting ways in which it was successful and unsuccessful in achieving desired outcomes. I will also identify how poor collaboration can result in inefficient care by causing patient adverse and sentinel events. I will identify how best practice leadership strategies from the literature, which would improve an interdisciplinary team's ability to achieve its goals. I will also identify how best practice and interdisciplinary collaboration strategies will help my team to achieve its goals and work more efficiently together. And I will mention the authors from the literature I utilize. I'm going to start off with a background. I currently work in a COVID unit floor. Before we were a med surgical floor and had to transition pretty quickly into a COVID unit. During this case of COVID hitting, we knew that things were going to be different. So one major thing that changed was we weren't able to perform rounds as we used to anymore, since we had COVID units and not everyone was able to go back there into the COVID units. So rounds ended up falling apart to the point where we just no longer had rounds, or the only way we would communicate rounds is when the doctors saw their patients and we were able to catch up with them into the patient's rooms, or we either had to find a time in our days as a nurse to call the providers and see what the plan for the patient would be for that day over the phone. So due to COVID hitting, we knew that we had to develop a better system in which would allow the entire team to collaborate in interdisciplinary rounds. We understood that interdisciplinary rounds were in the best interest of patients. Poor communication among staff is a root cause of many patient adverse outcomes. Therefore, we developed a new way to perform morning rounds. So we as a team all agreed to meet outside COVID unit at 9 a.m. for rounds, with stressing the importance of time and the leader being the provider. So we all established rules for rounding. The first set being that the rounding team would consist of the provider, the nurse taking care of the patient that day, the nurse manager, the case manager, and as well as the pharmacist. So we together as a team all established the following rules. That rounds must take place at a consistent time daily, which would be 9 a.m. That all members of the interdisciplinary team were expected to attend and be on time to rounds. Rounds is to begin when the team leader is in attendance, being the provider. Each team member must come prepared to present a round and stay true to his or her talking points. And each member should spend no more than 2 minutes on one patient. Therefore, the nurse brings in a different perspective from that of the physician. So the staff nurse, being me, I was the registered nurse for the day that I work. The nurse will discuss topics such as the patient's progress as it relates to the plan of care, any barriers to the patient's progression, such as pain or inability to walk or inability to eat, anything new that would come up that would interfere with the patient's plan of care. Also, any transition points such as discontinuing IV medications, removing any drains or devices, or any diet progressions. Things like this we would bring up during rounds as a nurse. As mentioned by Tony Sesta, the positive outcomes expected from interdisciplinary rounds are reduction in morbidity and mortality, quick assessments, safety checks, patient satisfaction, as well as staff satisfaction and education. Additionally, Tony Sessa further states how rounds can be beneficial in discharging planning or any pharmaceutical changes that may be needed to be changed for that day. With implementing rounds again, it was successful because we could now have a team together again in order to provide the best care for our patients. It is successful because we can all communicate in a timely and efficient setting in order to plan for a successful day. So with rounds taking place, we were able to go ahead and advance with a better plan of care for the nurse and for the patients overall. However, when developing and implementing interdisciplinary rounds, we did cause some challenges. So in this case, it was being new since rounds are being implemented once again, it was still quite new to us. With it being new, it was unsuccessful in the way that a few times people wouldn't be there on time. For example, one day, the provider wasn't able to arrive on time, and that delayed direct care for patients. It put everyone behind. It put everyone behind on their work plan, on their work days. So we had to wait and page the provider and remind him that we're all here waiting for him to arrive in order to start rounds, because once again, rounds did not start without the provider being present since he was the team leader. So this caused us to delay our day. However, upon reflecting on the situation, what I determined we can all do is in the future to page the provider ahead of time to remind him what time round starts, which is 9 a.m., and for him to be present so that we can all start in a timely fashion. Of course, we also could remind him that rounds cannot start without his presence since he is the head of the team. And that would benefit us because it would allow the provider to be there on time and not delay any work for the day. Poor collaboration and communication can result in sentinel events and adverse outcomes. So as stated by the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, 2017, communication failure is the second most frequently identified root cause of sentinel events. Communication failures are leading contributing factors to medical errors, especially in the intensive care unit ICU setting, end quote. Therefore, it is important to efficiently plan and adhere to rules during rounding times, especially in high intensive care settings such as our COVID unit. Quote, physicians, nurses, and UAPs each provide portions of patient care. Coordination of the various treatments and interventions provided is critical to prevent errors, fragmentation of care. End quote. Lannister et al., 2015. When teams collaborate and communicate well, often in an informal but direct way, patient harm is reduced. Therefore, interdisciplinary rounds are very important in the healthcare system and for care coordination because it would improve patient outcomes, it would improve patient satisfaction, it would improve staff satisfaction, it would improve overall patient safety, which is very important. And that concludes the end of my video. Thank you so much.